PFL Europe 3 from Paris, France. This Saturday morning in the States, you've got the main event. It is going to be Cedric Doumbe taking on Jordan Zebo. Of course, Doumbe originally signed with the UFC for former Glory kickboxer. The UFC dropped the ball at Doumbe. He didn't end up making it to the UFC Paris card, so he's now in the PFL. And also, the Lazy King, 16-1 double champ in Aries FC, is making his way to the PFL as well. A guy that I don't know how the UFC did not go out and sign. Unfortunately, he's fighting a fighter who is 18-13, so I think you know how that fight's gonna go. It's kind of the way some PFL cards go, but of course, PFL playoff action here in Paris. Obviously, you've got the bantamweights, you have the lightweights, and the women's flyweights going on this card, and the light heavyweights too. So Simeon Powell's on this card. Dakota Ditcheva are the two big stars, I guess, of PFL Europe. And then also you've got Laureano Staropoli making his PFL Europe debut on this card as well. So you're gonna have 13 fights on this PFL Europe card. And folks, if you haven't yet though, make sure that subscribe button down below for some more MMA predictions here on the channel. I wasn't actually going to do this card, but I got a bunch of requests to do it. So here we are doing PFL Europe. Let's get it going. Hit that subscribe button down below for more. We'll be back in a couple of days for UFC predictions with Grant Dawson and Bobby King Green in the main event from the UFC Apex. Some of these undercard fights I'm going to go through pretty quickly. I know this is not a playoff fight. This is a pretty straightforward one. You got Chanel Dyer taking on her opponent here. And you've got Luisa Fernanda Cifuentes, I believe her name is, fighting out of Colombia. She's got like a record on Tapology that's not completely filled out, which, you know, what are we doing? She's taking on the Nightmare Chanel Dyer here. Dyer's 22 years old, making her PFL debut. It's kind of obvious who the PFL is promoting and pushing for this fight. Dyer, again, the English-born fighter. Tapology head coach Brad Pickett, again, 2-0 professionally. She's fighting out of Great Britain top team over there in the UK. 5-fight winning streak dating back to her amateur days, but again, 2-0 as a professional. This fight is pretty straightforward. Again, she is the much better fighter. You don't even know what you're going to get here out of the 32-year-old Luisa Fernanda Cifuentes. Again, this will be all Chanel Dyer for sure knockout. That one's pretty straightforward. Okay, next up, now we will get to the playoff fights. This is going to be your first one. You've got a 2-1 fighter taking on a 4-4 fighter here in the playoffs. Two Italian fighters. You got the Butcher's daughter and Manuela Marconetto taking on Valentina Scatizzi here. Scatizzi's coming off her split decision win over Lizzie Gevers on PFL Europe 1. She's 2-1 as a professional. She lost her fight before, fighting in PFL Europe against Samantha Jean-Francois by first round submission. She'll take on Manuela Marconetto here in this fight. Marconetto did not fight in the PFL. She's just found her way to the semifinals fight. I don't know entirely how, I'll be honest with you. She's lost her last two fights, losing the last fight on Slam FC 15 by unanimous decision and losing on Aries FC before that. She lost to Shira Penko as well in Bellator in 2022. Penko's coming off a loss in her last fight in Dublin, Ireland. What are we doing here? Like, seriously, what are we doing? I believe she was the Cage Warriors Academy, or she fought in the Cage Warriors Academy amateur like promotion they kind of run. I think Valentina Scatizzi wins. I honestly can't tell you much about Manuela, considering she is 4-4, a fight away from becoming, I'm not going to say a world champion, because PFL Europe is definitely not a world championship promotion, but from becoming, you know, a regional champion here, I would say PFL Europe is honestly slightly below Cage Warriors, but like, you know, it's not like you're fighting random schmucks, right? Well, I mean, okay, this is a 4-4 fighter who has lost 3 out of her last 4 fights. She has beat Danny McCormack back in 2022, which is good because Danny McCormack is now 7-2, who is, you know, running through Invicta. She is the Invicta strawweight champion, so that is definitely Manuela's best win to date. However, I'm still taking Valentina Scatizzi to win. We've seen her win in PFL before. Again, it's not the greatest levels of competition. The winner of this fight will be fighting Dakota Ditcheva. You know who's winning this. But I'm going to take Valentina Scatizzi to go fight Ditcheva next. Scatizzi wins by unanimous decision. And also, real quick before we get into the next fight, I wasn't going to do this video, but part of that, this card's pretty good. Like, honestly, it's a decent card. As you go into the main card, you will see this card is actually pretty damn solid. But okay, on to the next one. You got John Mitchell taking on Alexander Chizov in this fight. You got John Mitchell, who is the Irish fighter, taking on, I believe, not from Poland, Latvia's own in Chizov here in the lightweight division. So this fight, again, is going to be a semifinal fight. However, Chizov lost his last fight in PFL Europe 2. He loses it by unanimous decision. He won a fight in the PFL before that in 2022 on American soil, right? He's taken on John Mitchell, who won his fight in the PFL, winning it by unanimous decision on PFL Europe 2. And now here you go. You get both these guys in this fight. For, again, John Mitchell, he is 7-1 professionally. You look at the one loss is going to be in UAE Warriors. He's got caught in a guillotine choke in the first round. For Chizov, his last loss obviously comes in his last fight in the PFL. And before that, you got to go back to Nadia Fighting Championship back in 2017, but since then it has been all wins since, again, winning the PFL in 2022 on that card in London, England. Oh, sorry, it wasn't on American soil, but against the PFL American version, kind of. Anyways, that's besides the point. I think John Mitchell gets the victory here. I think he does. I think both these guys are pretty solid on the feet, but I think Mitchell is slightly better. Obviously, the experience is going to go with Alexander Chizov here. I think it's a very close fight. I think this is going to be one of the closer ones to pick. You look in Tapology, you get 74% for Mitchell, you get 26% for Chizov. I think Mitchell wins. I think he gets it done by unanimous decision. Before we get to the next fight, shout out to the PFL for not putting this fight on in America. Can't watch this fight in the USA. You can't watch this card, which is ridiculous. I mean, obviously, you can illegally stream it. Now, I'm not saying like I have ever done that, obviously. I never do that. Wink, I never illegally stream fights. However, you can definitely probably find a stream out there. It's on DAZN regularly, but DAZN, I guess, is not airing this fight card in the US. I don't know why. It doesn't make sense. But our next fight here, you have got, we're going to have Dylan Tuke taking on Jakub Kaszuba, I believe, in this fight. You got Kaszuba, who's 9-0, taking on the Irish fighter who's 6-3 here in Dylan Tuke. For Tuke, he won his first fight in the PFL by beating Connor Hughes by unanimous decision in a fight that he was a plus 375 dog in. Didn't think he was going to go out there and win the fight, but he comes out there, upsets a lot of people, beats Hughes by decision. He'll be taking on the undefeated Kaszuba in this fight. Kaszuba coming off a first-round submission victory on his first fight, PFL Europe 2. Again, that card was 2 months ago. It was like 2.5 months ago, that PFL Europe 2 card. So, again, quick turnarounds for a lot of these guys. But again, Kaszuba's coming off a first-round submission victory, and you got to, play that into account, especially for the guys fighting off on the PFL Europe 2 card. The first PFL Europe card was like way at the beginning of the year, before I believe the first PFL card was this season. So those guys have a long layoff. But the guys fighting on PFL Europe 2, or if we're coming off the PFL Europe 2 card, again, 2.5 months recovery time, which is crazy. Again, Tuke went the full 15 minutes. For Kaszuba, again, this guy has ran through everyone. I know, again, Dylan Tuke his last fight, beat a 7-0 fighter in Connor Hughes. He was not supposed to go out there and win, but he takes down Hughes and he beats him. I don't think he's going to beat Kaszuba. Kazuba's been really good. Goes out there, gets finishes. His record outside the PFL has not been the greatest. Like, it's not the most impressive guys that he has beat outside the PFL. However, I still think he's the better fighter. I think Kaszuba goes out there, and I think he goes out there and picks up the victory. I'm going to take him by second round sub. I think it's going to take him a little bit, but I think Kazuba's going to go out there and pick up the victory. Moving on to the lightweight final in the PFL. On to the bantamweight division, we have now got Franz Mlambo taking on Mokhtar Benkaci, I believe. You got the French fighter in Mokhtar taking on Franz Mlambo. Mlambo 14-5, fighting out of SBG Ireland, originally hailing from South Africa. He went, he had his stint in Bellator, his one fight in the PFL, again, on that PFL Europe 2 card, which was just less than 2 months ago. Originally supposed to be against Dominic Wooding, a well-known fighter. He's fought in Bellator before. He's fought in Cage Warriors. He was the former CFFC Bantamweight Championship. Former Cage Warriors Bantamweight Championship, though, a Bantamweight champion. Wooding drops out of the fight, so then you get Mlambo versus Rashid Haas instead. Mlambo beats Haas by majority decision. His last loss comes back against Ricky Bendejas early in 2020, fighting in Bellator. He lost, he got caught by left hook, got knocked out. Did go 3-1 in Bellator, though. Got a win. His original win over Dominic Wooding came back in Bellator 227 in 2019. I would say Franz Mlambo is a pretty solid guy, honestly. He's a pretty good all-around fighter. He can get it done on the feet and get it done on grappling as well. We're taking on the underdog here in Mokhtar Benkaci. Benkaci coming off of a loss in his last fight at PFL Europe 2, losing to a fighter who was 9-1 at the time, losing it by unanimous decision. Again, PFL Europe got kind of odd. the last card with the whole, judges scorecards, the guy's missing weight and stuff. However, here we are. Mokhtar is taking on Franz Mlambo. You look at what Mokhtar did in his first fight in the PFL. Again, PFL, not PFL Europe, but PFL, the playoff card last year. Ends with an accidental eye poke. All around, he's 20-8. He's been around. He's 31 years old. Has never been finished. I still think Mlambo is the better striker. I think he's an all-around better fighter. I think Mlambo is going to get it done by unanimous decision. Again, I know Benkaci does have experience in this fight, but I'm going to take Franz Mlambo to win this one. I'm going to take him to win by unanimous decision. On to the next one. I feel like this is one of the more obvious picks here. I mean, there's a couple, but Ali Taleb, who seems like the favorite at the 135-pound weight division. Obviously, again, the winner of Franz Mlambo and Mokhtar Benkaci is going to be in this fight. I think it's going to be Franz Mlambo taking on the winner of this fight. Ali Taleb taking on Khurshid Kakhorov. So Kakhorov won his last fight against Mokhtar Benkaci. Now he gets slotted in this fight against Ali Taleb. So of course, Mokhtar is coming in as the replacement fighter. This is a very tough fight to pick because again, you get Ali Taleb and two guys who won the last fight. Mlambo kind of lucks out getting a guy losing his last fight, but this is a good one. Again, Ali Taleb 9-0 as a professional. This guy has been on a roll. Again, he's fought twice in the PFL, one on PFL 9, the card in Europe, in England last year. Same thing. Well, not the same thing, but England is in Europe. He won his fight in August of last year, then came back PFL Europe 2, won by first round knockout. He takes on Kakhorov in this fight, and for Kakhorov, he lost to Brett Johns in Bellator. He went 1-1 over there, came to PFL Europe, won his first fight by unanimous decision. This is a good fight. You got Tajikistan's Kakhorov taking on Ali Taleb, obviously fighting out of Sweden. This is a very good fight. It's just unfortunate for Kakhorov that he's taking on the best bantamweight that the PFL has got in this Europe division. I think that it does easily said. Taleb is good. Taleb has got the grappling. He's got the striking. You've seen it again in his two PFL fights. He's gone out there. He's won by knockout in the first round. He's won by submission in the first round. The mounted guillotine finished in the first fight and the left hook in the next. Again, this guy has been dominant. Only one fight has gone the distance in Taleb's career. It would be the win over Victor Nunes back at UAE Warriors 24 in 2021. The rest have all been finishes, most of them early in the fight. Ali Taleb goes out there to finish. He goes out there to get the stoppage. I think he shows he's the better striker in this fight early. He's got more power. Ali Taleb moves on to take on Franz Mlambo in the final. I think Ali Taleb gets it done by first round knockout. Again, the hype is real with Ali Taleb. I think he wins and goes to 10-0. Okay, on to our next one. You have got the PFL debut of the former Aries interim welterweight champion in Laureano Staropoli, obviously a name you are familiar with the UFC. What did the UFC? Went 2-4. He picked up a couple wins over there. We'll talk about his UFC run in a minute, but he's going to be taking on Baba Bonduju Nadjombe here. For his opponent here in Baba Bonduju, this is a guy who won his last fight on Kongs FC just 2 months ago, fought William Gomez in 2021. I believe that was Gomez's fight that got him in the UFC. No, it wasn't. No, Gomez had 2 fights after that. That's my mistake. But still, fought William Gomez before. However, for Bonduju, or Baba Bonduju, he's lost 3 out of his last 4 fights. He has won his last fight, but again, this feels like a fight that they are trying to get Laureano Staropoli a victory, which makes sense, because again, Laureano Staropoli, a UFC name, but not just a UFC name who went to UFC, flopped. No, he came into Aries, won 3 fights over there, picked up their interim welterweight championship, got signed by the PFL. He's supposed to fight earlier this year. Fight didn't happen. Now he's going to be taking on Baba Bonduju Nadjombe in this fight. Staropoli is going to win. I mean, I think that's pretty obvious. It's how he does win. I think Staropoli's wrestling is getting better. I think his striking is pretty solid. I mean, you look at his fights at Aries, he does pretty well in those fights. The UFC run for Staropoli, I mean, we'll talk about it. He starts his UFC career off 2-0, so he beats Hector Aldana by unanimous decision, and then he beats Thiago Alves by unanimous decision in Brazil. And then he goes in, he's got a fight against Muslim Salikov, he loses it by unanimous decision. Then he fights Tim Means, he's overweight, he loses, fights Roman Dolidze, loses by unanimous decision, fights Jamie Pickett and loses. Staropoli gets cut, but again, he has been good outside of the UFC and now into the PFL. Again, this fight feels like a layup. Laureano Staropoli is going to win this fight. This new Laureano Staropoli, 30 years old, fighting out of MMA Factory in Paris, France. Fernand Lopez, the coach, obviously. Staropoli's looking good recently. think he wins. I think he looks really impressive. Staropoli wins by unanimous decision. It looks like it's going to be a catch weight of 180 for this fight, so that's something to look forward to, I guess. Interesting, though, because, again, he's taking on a guy who originally fights 155. I immediately jumped to, wait, okay, so this guy fought William Gomez. Gomez fights at 45 in the UFC, and he's going to fight Staropoli at 180. Don't know how I feel about that, but again, that's besides the point. Staropoli is going to win. He's going to take it by unanimous decision. Okay, on to our next one. So the PFL doesn't even have this graphic up on their website, so I had to use Tapology here. So originally, Luigi Venturini was going to make his PFL debut on this card. Obviously, if you remember Venturini, this is a guy who the UFC gave Paddy Pimblett and Luigi Venturini and Venturini's first fight in the UFC, or sorry, Pimlett's first fight in the UFC, because they were like, Luigi Venturini, you're the guy that Paddy Pimblett can be. Now, for Venturini, he beat Yesin Ayari in his first fight in the UFC. I kind of forgot this guy existed, honestly, because he hadn't fought for a while, and then he came in and he fought Venturini just randomly during the pandemic, but that's fine. Venturini went 1-3 in the UFC. I don't even know why I'm talking about him, because, again, he's not even in the fight. He pulled out. I got ahead of myself there. Okay, the fight is Yazid Chouchane taking on Henrique Madureira in this fight. I'll be honest with you, not that familiar with either of these guys. I'm just not. But I will tell you one thing. Tapology's got Henrique as the favorite. I don't see it. I don't know why he is a favorite in this fight. I know his last win was good. It was for the JFC Featherweight Championship over in Jakarta Fight Combat in Brazil. It's on paper, looks like a pretty good win against guys 8-2. However, again, the guys that fought in 3 years, and again, his opponent in Yazid, has won 2 fights recently. I just don't understand why the favorite here is Henrique. Henrique is 30. They're both 34 years old. Again, would I put money on this fight? Hell no. It's a PFL Europe fight against, again, Yazid was originally supposed to take on Luigi Venturini. So you get a short notice replacement, Henrique Madureira here, who hasn't fought in 3 years. It doesn't make sense to me why this guy's the favorite. Again, that's just on Tapology. I don't know, because some books aren't even offering this card, so good luck. Or some books won't even post odds for this until literally like the day of. So good luck with that. But yeah, I don't understand it. I think, again, Yazid has shown more potential, I think. I think he wins by decision. I just don't like Henrique at short notice, so I'm going to take Yazid to win by decision. Am I confident? Hell no. Am I all that familiar with those guys? I'll just be straight honest with you. I'm not. They haven't fought in the PFL before. I'm not that familiar. Anyways, let's now get into the better fights on this card. These 5 fights are really solid. We're going to start off here with Dakota Ditcheva taking on Cornelia Holm. Now, you know what's going to happen here. Dakota Ditcheva, the PFL has set her up to win the PFL Europe 125 division. I mean, that is their star at 125 that they want. They are hoping Dakota Ditcheva can lead them when they eventually make a 125-pound division. If they get some Bellator fighters, or even if they get Bellator as a whole, they're hoping Dakota Ditcheva can go in there and stand with Liz Carmouche. They're hoping she can fight against Carmouche, against Limale McFarlane, against Denise Kyle, against Yana Watanabe. They are hoping she can compete with these fighters. Will she? I don't know, because honestly, they are not giving Ditcheva anyone close to her. Like, even, again, we think she's going to fight Scatizzi next. That's not going to be hard for her. This fight against Cornelia Holm, a fighter who's 6-5, who barely got by split decision in her last fight, against a 6-5 fighter, what are we doing? I mean, she fought Lucia Pudzilova in Octagon once back in 2020. What are we doing here? Dakota Ditcheva is going to run right through her. Ditcheva's striking's on point. Her grappling's on point. Again, she is the Kayla Harrison. Well, Kayla Harrison lost now, but still it's fine. She is the PFL's new Kayla Harrison at 125 pounds, who's British. Ditcheva can do it all. She's the star here. Ditcheva's going to win. It's not going to be close. Dakota Ditcheva, first round TKO, puts the hands on her and wins the fight. That's not how I wanted to come out. Anyways, on to now the other big PFL Europe star, Simeon Powell, taking on Daniel Laredo in this fight. Ladero, sorry. So Ladero is 3-2. He actually lost his first PFL fight to Anthony Salamone, who we're going to talk about in a few moments here. I mean, the guy was a plus 375 dog to Salamone. He loses in the first round. He gets knocked out. Again, that was in March, so it was a while ago. So it's not like he just got knocked out like 2 months ago like the other guys we're talking about. But I mean, this is classic PFL booking. They are, and the thing is, it's it's not like Simeon Powell would lose to these guys. Like, he'd probably beat every single guy here. He wins his first fight by arm triangle choke in the second round in his first one. He's so much better than all these guys. This fight is just, they're hoping he can get a knockout, highlight reel knockout. He can go out there, beat Daniel Ladero. The White Gorilla is the nickname. This is not going to be close. Powell, again, is the best guy at this 205-pound weight class. He's 24 years old. He's another guy they're hoping can go out there and compete with some of their better guys at 125 pounds in their actual season, right? Like, they're hoping he can go out there. They're hoping he can compete with Impa Kasanganai. They're hoping he can compete with Josh Silveira, with maybe if Rob Wilkinson comes back, Thiago Santos. Hell, if they get some Bellator guys as well, if they get the Vadim Nemkovs of the world. I know Nemkov would smash Simeon Powell if they fought, but still, those are the type of guys they're hoping Simeon Powell can at least remain competitive with. This fight is not going to be anything tough for him. This is not a close fight. This is one-sided domination. He'll go out there and kill Daniel Ladero. It's not close. First round KO. Okay, on to the next one. Oh, I went backwards. There is the aforementioned Anthony Salamone, right? So Salamone is now getting Jakob Nedoh in this fight. Salamone, of course, winning his first fight by first round knockout against Daniel Ladero. He'll be getting the gorilla here, Nedoh, who won his first fight with a jab back in March. He wins in the first round, 48 seconds. Both these guys have crazy power. They do. I mean, Salamone, again, more of a grappler. I mean, he lost to Will Fleury in 2022. But again, you see what he was able to do. Lands a nice knee against Ladero. He wins the fight. I think Nedoh is the better striker, though. I mean, you've seen what Nedoh has been able to do. His one loss comes in his first professional fight in 2014. Take that away, 2017 and onwards, he's won every single fight in the first round. 2 of them by submission, 4 of them by knockout. That's how good Nedoh has been. And seriously, if he goes out here and wins like I think he's going to win, second round knockout, I think this fight's going to get a little further just because I think Salamone is very competent and is a very good fighter in his own right, who's got striking abilities and who can remain defensive as well. Still, though, this is going to be fun because if Nedoh wins, or even if Salamone wins, because if Salamone beats Nedoh, that's going to be huge. But the big fight is going to be Nedoh versus Simeon Powell. Because, again, Nedoh hasn't lost since 2014. Powell's undefeated. That's a big fight that the PFL can produce at 205 pounds. The Slovenian Nedoh 6'4", Simeon Powell, again, and both these guys, Nedoh's 26, Powell's 24. Again, 2 guys coming to their own, 2 big light heavyweights as well. Nedoh 6'4", Powell 6'5". This is a big fight for PFL Europe that they can get for the final card of the season in Ireland. I think Nedoh wins this fight by second round knockout, but my goodness, again, they are setting up for a huge light heavyweight fight between Nedoh and Simeon Powell, as long as it happens. That's why, again, they kind of did this, I think, obviously, because you don't want Powell fight. I mean, yeah, well, they could have done Powell versus Salamone, but again, they want Powell to have the easiest fight, basically. So they gave him Ladero, and then they gave Nedoh Salamone. That's why they're doing that. And they're not obviously going to do Nedoh and Powell right now because that's the fight that they want for the final. Okay, on it to the co-main event. So these fights, of course, are not part of the PFL Europe season, but they're big fights. You've got the Lazy King. I'm not even going to say Abdouraguimov. I can't even say his name. I can't say his name. I mean, I've watched the Lazy King in Aries. He's good. The first Aries FC fight card that I watched, gonna go back to it was for the Vacant Welterweight Championship, February 2022. I'm looking at it right here. I went on Tapology. I picked 10 fights. Only 4 of them actually happened. I knew nothing about Aries at the time. I really don't know all that much about Aries still. I mean, like I pay attention some to it, but yeah, there's 10 fights in this card and only 4 of them actually happened. But the main event, of course, was the Lazy King taking on former UFC fighter in Pepe, and yeah, Lazy King goes out there and absolutely kills him. First round submission in inverted triangle choke. And since then, again, he's defended the championship twice. He, in the last fight, went and got the double champ status, winning by a knee bar to take the middleweight championship in the 5th round. In the closing moments of that fight, 30 seconds to go, the Lazy King goes out there and he goes and wins a second championship. So now the Lazy King is back. He's going to be taking on, in all fairness, a really easy fight. He gets signed to the PFL. I don't know how the UFC fumbled that. He's literally on Fight Pass fighting for Aries, and they fumbled it. Brad Wheeler gets the fight now. And now Brad Wheeler is a guy who has been a veteran in Cage War. He's had 18 fights over there. He's 33 years old. However, the record is 18-13. His last fight, he's coming off a win 4 years ago to John Magger, winning by second round TKO on the undercard. this guy's fighting the Lazy King, it's not going to be close. He has been submitted once in the past. He is a pretty good grappler, Brad Wheeler. He is. He's got 11 submission wins in the past. That's big. He's fought some guys. He fought Mansour Barnawi back in 2012, which was also J.J. Wilson, but still that's besides the point. Brad Wheeler is, he's fought guys. It's just that, again, this fight's not competitive. Lazy King 16-1. He's going to go out there and absolutely mop the floor with Brad Wheeler. Lazy King wins this fight, first round submission win. Let's now go to the main event, which I think is an interesting fight because I've seen some points that do make sense with this. Again, Cedric Doumbe taking on Jordan Zebo in this fight. For Doumbe here, it doesn't entirely make that much sense for him to take this fight because, again, because he's fighting a relatively unknown guy who's pretty solid. Zebo's 23 years old. He's an MMA Factory guy. Again, Ferdinand Lopez, if you haven't heard of the MMA Factory, Ferdinand Lopez coach, obviously. Cyril Gane's there. They've got Alain Badeau. They've got guys, though, at MMA Factory. That's where Francis Ngannou was before, of course, he went over to the States. So, again, Doumbe is taking on a tough guy here who's 4-0, won his last fight by head kick knockout. He won the Performance of the Night bonus in Aries FC in his last fight, third round knockout, the head kick, taking on a pretty talented striker. And again, I know Cedric Doumbe, of course, obviously, you've seen the kickboxing past. The guy's one of the best glory kickboxers that's been seen, right? Doumbe's that good. He's 31 years old, finally now getting into MMA. Again, he's 4-0 in MMA. He was booked in the UFC back in 2022 against Darian Weeks. Fight got canceled. Doumbe left. It's contract dispute. I don't even know if Doumbe was technically signed. I know it was a rumor that he was going to go fight Weeks. It was booked, kind of, but he never ended up going and fighting in the UFC. That was in 2022. Now here he's back. He was booked against Gerard Hossein Al-Sawali. Doumbe got hurt earlier this season. It was supposed to be a season fight for the PFL, and now they booked him on the PFL Europe card. Again, I think this is a very tough fight for him because, again, Jordan Zebo has been good. We will see the grappling out of him. Zebo is not horrible on the ground either. He's got a submission win in his first win by guillotine choking against a guy who's 3-0. This is a really tough fight for Doumbe. I'm going to take Doumbe by first round TKO because that's what you kind of have to do in this fight. Because it kind of feels tough taking the underdog here at around, not bad value, plus 180 for the undefeated Jordan Zebo. But you feel like you have to take Doumbe here. Still, though, I think Zebo can challenge him on the feet. I think Zebo is going to definitely challenge him grappling-wise as well. Again, he's a young guy, 23 years old, up-and-coming prospect. It's a really confusing fight that Doumbe took this. This was the fight for Doumbe because PFL is known for setting guys up. Like, again, Simeon Powell is fighting 3-2 Daniel Ladero, who got knocked out in his first fight in the PFL season this year. Dakota Ditcheva is fighting a 6-5 fighter in Cornelia Holm, won by split decision, right? Like, they are known for booking their up-and-coming guys against, low-level opponents. We can go to their U.S. side of things. Kayla Harrison, when she fought Marina Moraes, Cindy Dandois, Jenna Fabi, and Taylor Gordano, that got her $1 million, right? Like, they booked their fighters against light schedules. They're throwing Doumbe out there into the wolves. Like, it's a tough fight. I think Doumbe gets it by first round TKO, but it's a very tough fight and an interesting fight because, again, what Zebo can do in terms of grappling and what he can do with the striking as well with the power. I think Doumbe wins. Doumbe's going to get it done by first round knockout, but again, it is a very close fight for me. I think Doumbe gets it done. I'm going to be interested to see what happens, but I think Doumbe, again, keeps it standing. I think Zebo is going to shoot a takedown. I think Doumbe is going to fight it off. I think Doumbe is going to go out there and knock him out. So Doumbe by first round knockout. That's PFL Europe 3, the playoff card. If you want to see the championship card later this year in December, let me know. We'll be back for the PFL in November for the U.S. championships, and then we'll have, of course, UFC. Okay, my card is full. Whatever. We'll just go like this. We'll have UFC with Grant Dawson and Bobby Green. That's going to be next week, and then we've got Bellator is coming back soon. Bellator 300 is going to be soon. I think is that next week too. Oh, it is. Okay, well, 2 MMA videos next week. You got UFC with Grant Dawson and Bobby Green, and then you got Bellator. 4 title fights. Yeah, crazy card. You got main event, Usman Nurmagomedov, Brent Primus, Chris Cyborg, Kat Zingano, Ryan Bader, Lyndon Vassell, Liz Carmouche, and Lee Malay McFarlane. It is a stacked card and a bunch of really good undercard fights on that card. So we'll talk about that next week. Bellator is not going under just yet. They've booked Bellator 301 in November, so I don't know. But folks, make sure that subscribe button down below for more. Make sure to leave a like if you did enjoy the video. Comment if you do disagree with any of the picks. Thank you all for watching, and Mamba forever.